Hello, my name's Linda Stephanie and I've been a member of Southside since the early 90s, since just after the church started. I've been asked to do this little video at very short notice, and it's to be about my thoughts on lockdown. So I decided just to tell you exactly that, what's been going through my mind during lockdown. The first thought I had was, this is not good. I'm quite old, and if I've got to be locked down for about 3 months of my life, well, that's 3 months of my life I can't get back again. However, the more I thought about it, thought back on my life and what I had been blessed with, I decided that I would do a bit of counting of my blessings. And I just reflected on where I used to be and where I am now. So I was brought up in Aberdeen in the Church of Scotland. I went to church every Sunday, went to Bible study, youth fellowship, everything. And I certainly in these days loved Jesus. I thought Jesus was just fabulous, loved the miracles and the parables, and just really wanted to be his friend. However, when I went to the church, I could never work out what was said in the church had to do with me and my life. And eventually, when I was 18, I left home to go to college, and then I got married and had 2 children and came to Ayr. So in the early 90s, my marriage broke up, and I became very fearful because I was going to be left myself to support 2 boys through university, and I had to work, I had to keep the house, I had to do everything. And I became quite fearful about, what if I lost my job? What if the boys went off the rails and I wasn't able to keep them under control? I was really, really fearful. And I decided I was going to go and find a church. So I went to a few churches, and what I was looking for was good music, lively music, friendly people, and a minister who spoke out in a way that I could understand, where I could actually get something out of the sermon. So I went to a few churches and none of them fitted the bill. And then I turned up at Southside. The very first week I came to Southside, everybody was lovely, they were very welcoming. The message that week, it was that way as if I thought the preacher must have been told I was coming because it was so relevant to me. And the music was great. So I very happily decided that Southside would be my spiritual home. In these days, I thought I was a Christian. I'd been brought up in the church. I was a Christian, so I thought. So the first thing I did in the first few weeks was I asked to join a Bible study. And the first night I went down to that Bible study, I was full of fear. I went down, my head felt like a big tomato that was about to burst. I was terrified about my marriage ending and being on my own with the boys and the money and just everything. So I sat and listened at the Bible study, and 2 things struck me. One was the people in that room definitely had something that I didn't have. And the second thing was, they kept saying things like, since I've been a Christian, before I was a Christian, when I became a Christian, and I thought, no, wait a minute, they're all talking as if something's happened here. So the leader of that Bible study, I'm sure he won't mind me telling you, was Bill Ferguson. So I hijacked Bill Ferguson's Bible study and said, look, can I just stop you? You people all have something I don't have, and you keep talking about when you were a Christian, before you were a Christian. What do you mean? What happened? So Bill allowed me to hijack that, and he said to them, do you mind going round the room and just telling Linda about your walk with God? So they did, and it was amazing. Some of them had been Christians forever because they'd been brought up that way. Some of them had become Christians, and they told me how and why and when. So I said, well, you've all got something that I don't have and I want it. So, how could I get it? So at the end of that Bible study, Bill stayed behind, so did I, and of course the owner of the house was there as well. And I have to say it was a very, very emotional time. I was desperate to get what they all had. And it was explained to me that if I wanted Jesus in my life, there was a personal relationship to be had. I just had to accept it and ask Jesus into my life. So I did that night. And I would have to say it was very, very emotional. I didn't get home, poor Bill, he didn't get home till about 1 o'clock in the morning because we were all in tears, and it was just amazing. I really think I had a Damascus experience. And when I went up the road, my head felt as if a brick had been taken out of it. I just felt so untroubled and so happy. And I was baptised 2 or 3 months later, and for the foreseeable future with my boys, basically Jesus and Southside were my life support system. So that was fine. But at first I thought, now, I was 44 when that happened. Why did nobody tell me this before I was 44? I could have had 44 years of being a happy Christian. However, what I wasn't to know was what was going to be happening to me after I became a Christian. Because life was far from easy after I became a Christian. And God's timing, as ever, was just perfect. He came into my life at exactly the point where I needed him. And he has been so good and so faithful to me. Lots of horrible things have happened to me since I've been a Christian. First of all, my son got cancer when he was 27. And then I got cancer in 2011. And then the company I was working for went into liquidation. And then I had to start my own company because I needed to work. And that was really scary. And then last year I got cancer again. And then over the whole piece, I've had terrible trouble with my ankles. I've got no cartilage in either ankle and I find it very difficult to walk. And last year I was told by the Royal Infirmary I could get 2 new ankles and I would get one in a few months. Then the cancer struck and that was cancelled. In February I was put back in the list and promised a date. And then the plague struck and that's been cancelled again. That's the only thing wrong in my life just now. I wish I could walk. But I'm quite sure, I have every confidence that God will give me my ankles when I'm meant to get them. But if somebody had told the young me that all these things were going to happen, I would have said, no, I won't be able to cope with that. And you know, I did cope. And I was so peaceful, I couldn't believe it. It literally was the biblical peace beyond all understanding. And my family and friends were amazed at how calm I was. I really did feel I was getting help. A lot of it was by prayer, a lot of other people's prayer, because it's quite hard sometimes to find the words when you're in the middle of a storm yourself. So what about lockdown? Well, I moved here 2 years ago. Because of my ankles, I needed to get rid of my stairs. And lockdown has allowed me to get to know my neighbours. We've got a communal garden. And they're all absolutely lovely. I now know every single neighbour. And we sit out the back, socially distanced, and chat every afternoon. At the beginning of lockdown, I read somebody saying that it's as if God has sent us to our rooms to consider what we've done. And I found that quite powerful, because he has stopped us all in our tracks. Obviously, the key workers are being given the strength and the patience to do what they have to do, and we're all very thankful for that. But the rest of us have just been stopped in our tracks. And I honestly think that God has done this, yes, to make us reflect on the way the world was going. But at the moment, I think the sky is bluer, the air is clearer, there are birds that I've never seen in my life before, there's lots of butterflies and bees, and I've got these lovely neighbours, most of whom are Christians, which I find absolutely amazing as well. So I think I have got many, many blessings. And I think that I can now just wait until things come back to normal. And I'm sure I'll get my ankles. And really, this has not been too bad for me. Or my neighbours, we were all just saying that. We were all saying how lucky we were to have landed here at this time in history. Because had I been in my own house, it would have been horrendous because I didn't know any of the neighbours. Nobody spoke. So my father's favourite hymn was Count Your Blessings. And I love the line, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. So I've been counting my blessings, and I am so surprised and grateful at how good God has been to me. So that's me coming to the end of my 10 minutes. I hope this is okay. Thank you for listening.